Well, there was a policeman that pulls over a car full of nuns. Sister, this is a 55 miles per hour highway, he says. Why are you going so slow? And the sister replies, Sir, I saw a lot of signs on the road that said 40, not 55. Oh, sister, the officer says, that's not the speed limit, that's the highway you were on. And the sister says, oh, silly me. Thanks for letting me know. I'll be more careful. So at this point, the officer sees the other nuns in the car shaking and trembling. Excuse me, sister, what's wrong with your friends back there? The sister answers, oh, we just got off Highway 101. I think you get the theme. There's a highway, there's a journey we're talking about today. And I asked Sweet Jim if he would please sing this song today, because 47 years ago, the Beatles, this song by the Beatles became the last #1 song in the U.S. And the release of this song and the events that happened around it and following led to the end of a long and winding partnership for the Beatles, who had been together since 1960, if you remember this. You know, their music changed the world. And the words to that song touch the heart. You know, I've seen videos of Paul McCartney in later years singing the song and people in the audience weeping. It touches something. One of the amazing abilities of music is to take us back in time to remember and connect with our heart and with our memories, isn't it? Yeah, because this song, I think, can remind us of our own journey, the long and winding road. You know, something on our journey, you know, it touches our heart. Maybe in our journey, something that we journeyed toward that maybe disappointed us, that broke our hearts, that left us with thwarted expectations and disappointments, maybe a loss or a dream that didn't turn out quite the way we wanted it to, and left us, like the song says, standing alone, waiting and grieving, and we want to know the way back home to what was real. And so the song just really reminded me of our life journey. You know, life is like a long and winding road, isn't it? It can feel that way. A real long and winding road. And, you know, because, you know, I don't know about you, but my journey has never been A, B, C, D. It's gone A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Yeah. And so, you know, I think about the journey of life, and, you know, I'm a real road trip person. I love road trips. And what came to mind to me when I was writing this talk was, oh, Thelma and Louise. You know, these two friends that embarked on this seemingly benign, you know, little weekend thing, and then all of a sudden they're running from the law and they end up going to a canyon. No, I'm not that. I'm not affirming that. But, you know, the journey of life is scenic. You know, it's a journey. And, you know, the words, you know, the song says, the wild and windy night that the rain washed away has left a pool of tears. Sometimes we've had tears on our journey, haven't we? And sometimes the journey, I think, has felt a little bit harder than we wanted it to be. Hasn't really unfolded the way that we had in mind, right? But what if we could be on this journey? Folks, what if we could just be on this journey? And like we were working with in the meditation, that knowing that we're on this winding journey, and that whatever comes, what would be possible for us if we could just embrace it and know truly that it's for us. To know that we know that we know that it's bringing us back home to ourselves. Again, the home we've never left. maybe we've just forgotten. And so what came to me to share today is the story of Jesus today. You know, today is the beginning of Holy Week that we call in the Christian tradition, where Jesus rides into Jerusalem on a donkey. And so I want to just kind of set up that day a little bit. Because remember, this is the culmination of Jesus' 3-year ministry. This is the last week of his 3-year ministry. And talk about a long and winding road. You know, for 3 years, Jesus has been teaching. He's been healing. He's been ticking people off, the Jewish authorities. And right before he comes into Jerusalem, he had just raised Lazarus from the dead. And that just was the straw that broke that camel's back for the Jewish authorities. Jesus now had a price on his head. And the disciples knew it, and they tried to talk him out of making this journey. But Jesus knew it was his to do. And so what he does is he goes and he asks someone to give him a donkey. Now, the significance of the donkey, metaphysically, is that the donkey, you know, typically the personality of a donkey is willful and stubborn and, stubborn as a mule. And so here Jesus rides into Jerusalem on this donkey, which represented his own dominion over his willful and controlling and stubborn thoughts. So he comes into Jerusalem and people welcome him with palms. Hosanna, welcome is he that comes in the name of the Lord. Here he is, and this begins his week. And one of the first things he does, remember the story? He goes into the temple and he clears it from being a marketplace. He clears the buyers and the sellers. He is ticked. My temple is not this, he says. And he continues to teach using parables. He's not hiding out, even though he knows they're looking for him. He has his last supper with his disciples where he washes their feet. He's betrayed by one of his dearest, dearest friends for 30 pieces of silver. And after the dinner, he goes and he prays with his disciples, 3 of his disciples, and asks them to please, please, please hold high watch with me. Stay awake, stay awake. And they sleep. And it's in the garden that he just surrenders to what is, and he releases and lets go, and the authorities come take him, and they question him, and they put him before the people, and you know the rest of the story. He's crucified, and then on that Sunday, he resurrects. And so I just was bringing to my heart the journey of Jesus and what he modeled coming into Jerusalem in spite of what he knew intuitively was going to happen to him. Probably wasn't exactly what he'd hoped. You know, his disciples never really understood him. They thought that he was going to be a king. There was going to be a kingdom, and Judas wanted him to stand up and take reign. And that wasn't Jesus' plan. So Jesus had to surrender to what was in that moment. And I was also drawn to share with you to just talk about this whole idea of the journey, one of the parables that he taught that week. One of the parables that he taught that week was the prodigal son. So Jesus tells the story of a property owner who had 2 sons. And the older son stays home, works hard, and tends to his responsibilities, while the younger son demands his share of his inheritance while his father is still living, and goes off to a distant country where he squandered his property with riotous living. I think there were prostitutes involved. He was having a big party. And this younger son eventually has to take work as a swineherd. Now, clearly, this is his lowest of low, since swine are unclean in Judaism. This was really his lowest point. But it's here that he comes to his senses. He comes to himself, and he remembers who he truly is, and he decides to return home and threw himself on his father's mercy, thinking that even if his father does disown him, he could at least become one of his servants, which would be so much better than working with the pigs. So when the younger son returns home, he says, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands." But his father greets him with open arms and hardly gives him a chance to express his repentance. He brings out the best robe and puts it on him, and a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and kills a fatted calf to celebrate his return. But the older brother resents the favored treatment of his irresponsible brother and complains of the lack of reward for his own faithfulness. But the father responds in this way: "My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." So here's the son who moved away, who went out on the journey seeking his own adventure, walking the long and winding road. And it didn't exactly turn out the way he hoped. But because of that, he came home to himself. He realized that what he had gone through was leading him back to what was true about himself, about his family, the unconditional love that he had always had. See, the father, didn't forgive him because there was nothing to forgive. See, the door to the home of love is always available to us. The home of love is within us. And in the midst of our own life experiences on our long and winding road, we can follow the example of Jesus and the prodigal son. Because, folks, in both of these stories, there was a betrayal. Jesus was betrayed by his dear friend, and the prodigal son really betrayed himself. But both surrendered and came to a realization of who and what they were. And as Jesus modeled, we need to turn our attention inward when we feel alone and fearful. What did he do? He went to the garden to pray. See, so often on our journey, we just keep moving. And we forget to reflect on our journey and what it's stirring in us. And so Jesus modeled going and getting still, turning inward. The prodigal son modeled that regardless of whatever happens to us, we can allow it to bring us home to an awareness of the truth of what we are. And I know that every single one of you in your life is probably experiencing something that you wish maybe wasn't the way it was. And I just want to invite you, because I'm working with it too. I've had this bronchitis thing for about 3 weeks. And I'm like, what is that? And so I just am working with, what is it trying to show me and tell me that's true about me? So let's work with this whole energy of Palm Sunday as we move into Holy Week, to take a look at our lives and what's unfolding. What is it in our life? So this week, what's it in your life? Take a moment, pause. Is there something that you're resisting? Maybe something that's not really turning out the way you thought, or is taking a whole lot longer than you thought. And like so, and turn it inward to your infinite wisdom, and just ask yourself, what is this teaching me about the truth of me? How is this for me? Because it is. It's here to bring you home to a deeper awareness and claiming of the truth of what you are. Folks, this is Easter. This is what Easter's all about in unity. That we rise in an awareness of our divinity. But there's a process. We get to end something and be in the void a little bit. That fertile ground to have a new beginning. So I just invite you this week as we embark on Holy Week to take some time in the silence, pause, turn within, and ask yourself, whatever it is that's on your heart that might be just bugging you right now, or you might be resisting it, how is this for me? How is this for my greatest unfolding to know more deeply the truth of what I am? And come on Friday and release whatever it is that feels like you can't shake it, that's in the way of you claiming the truth of all of you. So I'll see you this Friday, and happy, beautiful Holy Week. May you know this week and on Easter Sunday the beauty and magnificence you are. So let's affirm together. I allow the journey of life to lead me back home. I remember all that I am. I am free. And so it is.